Hello, this is Brian Lee here, and I welcome you to the Best Practices NPV Excel Hack course. Today we're going to be going over 3 different methods of calculating net present value within Excel. The first 2 items shown in canned Excel functions, while the Best Practices NPV is an actual Excel formula. So number 1 is the ever popular NPV Excel function. Though it's the most popular, it's the least flexible of the 3 that we'll be looking at. Up next is the XNPV Excel function. Very few people use this, and I can understand why, because the documentation is incorrect. It is far superior, though, if you know how to use it correctly, than the NPV Excel function. And then last but not least is the NPV Excel formula, which can do things over and above what the XNPV Excel function can provide. In looking at these 3 different methods, we'll be looking at the timing of cash flows in 4 different manners. First, using a constant discount rate. Net present value, by definition, is the discounted free cash flow at the weighted average cost of capital. So we'll be looking at initially a constant weighted average cost of capital. And the timing of the cash flows we'll look at will be 1, end of year cash flows. 2, the timing would be mid-year cash flows. 3 would be periodic cash flows, but with an offset. And in fact, mid-year discounting is a periodic series of cash flows with a half-year offset. So it's a special case of that periodic cash flow with offset category. And then lastly, we'll be looking at cash flows of any timing or any periodicity. And to conclude this presentation, we'll be looking at the use of variable discount rates over time, in this case, various WACC values for each free cash flow presented. And this just shows that only the Best Practices NPV formula can handle the variable discount rates. So let's take a look at the spreadsheet we'll be working with. I call it the skeletal spreadsheet, and you can actually download it right now. It's all set up in this format. The top section is going to be eventually filled in cell by cell through the discussion process with what I consider under the hood type calculation details, such that we can understand what is taking place behind the scenes when we enter single cell functions and formulas in the bottom half of the spreadsheet. Once we have completed the spreadsheet, this is what it will look like in terms of values. I will provide a PDF file at the end so you can compare your answers against mine. In fact, you can compare it as we go along, but I'll provide a PDF. I will not provide the completed Excel spreadsheet, only because learning takes place when you struggle. So once you have completed the spreadsheet, you will in fact have mastered these 3 different NPV approaches. You will know how to compare and contrast. In fact, I have a matrix set up whereby we can look in the last 3 columns at the 3 NPV calculations. And categories are NPV, initial cash flow, recognizes blank cash flow cells as zeros. Microsoft Office's XNPV function documentation is correct. I've already told you it's not. We'll take a look at that and see why it's not correct. Cash flow periodicity, the timing of the cash flows, and then lastly, use of either constant or variable discount rates. So as a teaser, I'm just going to go ahead and reveal all of the answers for the best practices NPV column, the last column. And you'll see that it basically nails everything that's presented on the left-hand side in the categories as well as the individual metrics. As an example, the very first category, NPV, the metric, is this best practices NPV formula an actual NPV formula? Yes, it is. Just quickly going down the list, initial cash flow, denoted CF, is it included in the calculation? Yes, it is for the best practices NPV calculation. Does the best practices NPV calculation recognize blank cells within the cash flow column as zeros? Yes, it does. That's important, and I'll show you an example as we develop the spreadsheet. We've already discussed the fourth item, and we've discussed the metrics for the different cash flow timing and the different discount rates. So I will just simply make a comment that yes, indeed, each of these categories and metrics is positively answered and addressed by the best practices NPV formula, but not so for the other two NPV calculations. Let's get started. Go ahead and download the skeletal spreadsheet and follow along as I develop it cell by cell.